Hello guys, and today I'm going to show you how to 3D model a laptop in Blender, and this is going to go over some more stuff that I didn't exactly go over in the basics on Blender tutorial, the video I uploaded yesterday. So make sure guys you like and subscribe so you don't miss another video, and let's get into this one. Okay, so the first thing is you want to delete everything right now, because you don't need all of it. And then next, you can just grab, basically from Chrome, just grab a reference image, so keyboard, and I'll leave the reference image down below so that you guys can use it. Alright guys, so we're just going to go to this keyboard right here, the Microsoft Designer Compact Keyboard, save the image as, and we'll just call it keyboard image. And then you go in Blender and then go to the top view, which is pressing 7 on your numpad and hitting Shift A to add an object in mesh. Go in mesh, and then that's what mesh is, what lets you allow a physical object in Blender. And then you go to a cube. Now before you do anything else, you want to also hit Shift A, go down to image, and then go down to reference, and then go to your downloads where you find your reference image. Mine was keyboard image right here. Load reference image, and you can just scale it up so you can see it a bit better. And then there you have that reference image. And so, by the way guys, this is a laptop, if I didn't say already. But, so you scale the cube down, just using the global scale tool, not on a specific axis, just the scale tool. And then you want to move this key to one of the keys on the keyboard image. And then hit S and then Z on your keyboard. And then hit GZ to bring the key a bit up. And maybe scale it a bit thinner. Then you want to go tab into edit mode. Hit Alt Z by default, that's to toggle X-ray, and select all these vertices on this cube, or you could just hit A, and then hit Control B, and basically drag to the right, and that will let you bevel your key. In my case though, I want it more beveled, so you can hit Control B, drag to the right, and then you can scroll up on your trackpad to get less vertices. 4 of them. And then you can scroll down on the trackpad to get more vertices for the key. So in my case, I'm just gonna have 4, and then as you can see, if you hit Alt Z again, it'll take you out of X-ray mode, or you could just go where my mouse is, and this is the toggle X-ray button. And then so yeah, this is the first key. Then we're going to go back to top view and hit Shift D and then hit X, and that'll move the key that you just duplicated, because you just duplicated the key and then moved it on the X axis. And then you can hit Shift D again and then hit X to duplicate it, and keep doing that, but instead of 1 by 1, now we have 3. You can select each one of them by holding Shift. So click one and then hit Shift, and now select another one and then hit Shift again. And then you want to hit Shift D and then duplicate that on the X-axis. And I'm just going to speed this up a bit so that we can go to the next part. And by the way, just keep duplicating all these keys. I'll tell you in a moment about the other keys, like the tab keys and the caps lock keys or whatever. So hit Shift D, and this time on the Y to go up, and then hit G, X, and line it up with the keys on the keyboard, and then just do it again. Shift D, X. And then hit Shift D, X again. Then you want to hit Shift D and select 3 keys, and then hit Shift D and then X so that you can get to these ones. By the way, guys, I recommend using this image. Link is in the description so you guys can download it. Hit Shift D, Y, and then bring it down, and then left click, and then G, X, and grab it on the X-axis. And then you want to select 3 of these keys, Shift select 3 of these keys, and then hit Shift to D, and then X, and then click on that, left click. And as you can see, you have these basic keys so far. And then all you want to do for the last part is select all these top keys right here, and then hit Shift D, Y, and then hit G, X, and then hit G, Y. Just make sure to precision scale it with the image. Bless you! Bless you. And then, now you want to duplicate 1 key for the hyphen, or not hyphen key. I don't know what this key is, but anyway, I'm gonna Shift D, and then there you go. And we have almost all the regular keys, but now we need to just Shift select 4 of these keys, and then hit Shift D, Y, and then left click, and then G, X to line it up with the control key and stuff. And then hit G, Y, and bring it up a bit. Then delete the key that's in the control key place, because we're going to separately model those. And then we have all basically the normal keys. Let me just add a bit more. Shift D, Y, and GX. Shift D, X, then Shift D, X, and then those are all the normal keys on the keyboard that are the same size for that part. And as you can see in our thing, in our properties viewer, or not properties, our outliner, we have all of these keys. We are basically going to click on the left click on the scene collection, and then you might, if you have a smaller resolution computer, you might need to drag this out a bit by clicking on this little part and dragging it out. And then click on this collection button and scroll all the way down till it says collection 2. Now just rename that by double clicking and rename it to keys. And then basically you don't have to name all these keys individually. If you want to, you should. I would do it after the whole model is done. And so there you have all those keys that are the same size. So now what you want to do is you have this reference image. You can just put this collection of references, so we'll just put refs, and then add another collection, and yeah, we'll add in there, we'll just call it objects for now. So basically we want to Shift A, hit Shift A to add a new mesh or add a new object, and hit cube. And then now for these arrow keys, we're going to be doing something a bit different. We're going to zoom in and then pan the view, and now hit Alt Z to X-ray, or click on the X-ray button, and then scale that down until about where you can see it's about arrow key size. And then also scale it on the Y-axis so that it's about half the size of one of those regular keys on the keyboard. And then precision line it up with the image, make sure it's perfectly lined up. It doesn't have to be perfect, but just make sure it's lined up properly. and then Shift D, Y, and then bring it down to the other, where the other arrow key is, and then get out of X-ray mode, and just precision line it up with the image if you want to. I just like to make it more exact. And as you can see though, these aren't thin like the other keys, so we can just scale them down. And then we can just go to one of these keys, press N for the properties tab, properties window, and basically copy the Z-axis location by clicking on it and then hitting Control C, and then paste that in the Z-axis location for these other arrow keys right here. Then you just want to scale both of those a bit down on the Z a bit more, and then bevel these edges and tab into X-ray mode for the vertices and select all these to make it a bit easier, or just hit A and then hit Control B and then get however many edges you want. I like some, but not too many. I think that's good. We can delete this one and then basically duplicate by going Shift D and then Y and duplicating that. Go into top view and just make sure it's lined up. You can hit X-ray to make sure it's lined up with the image, and that looks pretty lined up. And so, by the way, when you're adding the new keys, I should have mentioned this earlier, but when you're adding the newer keys, you should click on this keys collection. You don't have to open it with the arrow, you could just click on it, and then basically when you add in an object, you'll automatically add it to that collection that you have selected. So now we're gonna go to the space bar. Now for this, you can just hit Shift D and then X and drag that to the space bar, and then scale it on the X-axis to that spacebar size, and then just line it up with the image, maybe scale it on the Y-axis a bit, and then now we have the spacebar, and then we can, again, I'm just lining up a key with the image, and then we can just duplicate for the shift, so Shift D, so we can duplicate it for the shift key, and then basically scale it on the X-axis to match the shift key, and then scale it a bit more on the X-axis just to make sure it's actually matched. You could use X-ray mode to make sure it's exactly matched, and then just do that for all the other keys. Make sure to scale them right. Then once you have all these completed, you can just basically duplicate them to the other side as far as the shift keys, and you might need to scale down the shift key on the other side because usually the shift key is smaller on the left side than the right side. Then same from the enter key, except duplicate it by hitting Shift D, not Shift S, Shift D and then X, and scale the enter key down to what the caps lock key would be like. Then then you could Shift D Y to duplicate that for the tab key, and then scale it down a bit more and line it up with the image. And then you could duplicate the tab key to the control key by hitting Shift D, Y, and that'll match up with the control key. And there you go, you have that besides the escape key and function keys. We'll do the function keys and stuff also. So basically you can just Shift D, and then on the Y axis, and do that for each time, except multiple select all of these keys, and then duplicate them to the F keys and scale them down on the Y axis as I show them here. As I show that here. So now you can hit SY to scale these keys down on the Y axis. And then you can hit Alt Z to make sure they're lined up. In my case, they're not really that lined up, and actually they need to be a bit smaller altogether. So I can just scale them down a bit. And actually, this is where I recommend turning on individual origins right here, so that they can each scale on their own origin, so that's not like they're all one object or anything like that. And then again, you may need to go in with each key and line it up a bit, because scaling them all together just makes it a bit weird. And as you can see, it also doesn't make it straight. So, as you can see, I'm just lining all these up. And then duplicate this on the x-axis, and then duplicate it again for the lock key and the delete key. The delete key is a bit bigger, so you're just going to want to scale that on the x-axis a bit. And then scale on the y a bit, like a tiny bit maybe. And then duplicate that all the way to the escape key. And there you have all the keys of the keyboard. And look at that, it looks pretty awesome, guys. So, good job. Now, this is the first part. And now the second part of what we need to do is to basically get the base of the keyboard to hold the keys. So, now we're going to go to the objects, click on the objects collection, and then hit Shift A and add a cube and scale it on the Z-axis to make it really thin so that it looks like it's integrated into the keyboard later. Go into top view on your numpad, or if you have emulate numpad, on your emulated numpad, and then just hit S, X, and scale it on the Y-axis, or X-axis, sorry. And then scale it on the Y-axis. And then, as you can see in the reference image, the keyboard is rounded off. So you can go in and round the thing off after we grab it on the Z-axis and put it down a bit. And then we go on all these, we hit A and then hit bevel or Control B to bevel the object, and then put a lot of vertices, not too much, but just plenty. And as you can see, guys, now it's rounded off. And now we have our keyboard base, and we're going to rename this in the outliner to keyboard base. And yeah, we have our keyboard complete. But we still need to make the laptop part, and that's going to be really easy. So all you're going to have to do is hit Shift D and then right click. And right clicking is so that you don't have to move it anywhere. I mean, you can left click, but right click is to make sure it's in the same position as whatever you duplicated. So now you hit 7 on your numpad, and hit SY to scale on the y-axis, and then hit GY to grab it a bit, and then hit SX to scale it a bit so that the keyboard isn't, so the thing isn't exactly what the keyboard is. And then you may want to just hit GZ and basically just cover the keyboard a bit, grab it a bit up, like a tiny bit up or a bit down, so that it looks like it's integrated into the laptop. And then you're just going to want to hit Control R and then hit 2 and hover over, and as you can see there's 2 lines. Left click and then right click on that, and then now we want to hit Control R and line it up so that it's cutting on the x-axis, and so that we can make our trackpad. And so to make our trackpad out of what we just did, we hit I to inset, and then you can actually scale that inset a bit, and then we basically hit E and then Z. It'll automatically scale it down, or have it going down, extruding down. And as you can see, we have our nice little trackpad over here, and it looks pretty nice and realistic. Now, to make the screen, we have to basically do the same thing. So we can hit Shift D and then right click on the keyboard base again, and then open up the Properties tab by hitting N on your keyboard and copy the scales of this laptop base. We're gonna name this laptop base in the outliner, so it's called laptop base, except with the non-capital A. And as you can see, we have to just click on the scale properties and copy them. So hit Control C, and then paste it to the x-axis scale on there, and then on the y-axis scale do the same thing. Control C, and then duplicate that y-axis scale to the y-axis on the secondary thing. As you can see, now it's scaled the same, but what we want to do is, one, grab it down on the y so it lines up with the keyboard base, and then rotate it on the x, and we'll put that at slightly more than 90, and then grab it on the y-axis, and then hit GZ to grab it on the z-axis, and then we're going to hit GX again, or not X, Y, and put it back a bit, and hit GZ to put it down so that it's more like an actual laptop. And there we go. That's our full complete laptop. Now, guys, this is our laptop for now, and make sure to like and subscribe for part 2. Part 2 is going to come tomorrow, and so this was just the 3D modeling part of the laptop, but then we're going to get into the texturing and stuff tomorrow, guys. So make sure to like and subscribe for that. However, there's one last thing we need to do, and that is click on the cursor tool and go to your top view, and then click at the top of the keyboard base, kind of, or what the bottom of the screen would be, and then you want to basically go back to the box select and just select the screen, and then hit object and then snap, and then or set origin and then origin to 3D cursor, and now look at that, it rotates like an actual laptop. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, guys, make sure to like and subscribe for that. For part 2. Part 2 is going to come tomorrow. That's going to be texturing and all that cool stuff. So thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time.